What's going on, friends? If you're not buying a new Harley-Davidson motorcycle, you may just feel like Harley-Davidson doesn't want your business. Hell, you may have even bought a used motorcycle from a Harley-Davidson dealership only to find out that they won't actually work on the bike that they just sold you. Harley-Davidson dealers have changed a lot over the years, and unfortunately, most Harley-Davidson dealerships, they're not exactly locally owned anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great dealerships out there with a lot of awesome people working in them. But times are changing, and owning a Harley-Davidson dealership can be very demanding, trying to keep up with all the remodels and the grand entryways and all the things that Harley-Davidson basically requires a dealership owner to have on their dealership to actually sell Harley-Davidson motorcycles. A lot of Harley-Davidson dealerships have sold, whether that be that the owner retired or maybe just passed away. And with my local Harley-Davidson dealer that I really loved, that was the case, is where the owner passed away and basically they're just going to go ahead and shut it down. Now, when a Harley-Davidson dealership gets sold these days, it usually ends up in the hands of a corporation. And as we all know, corporations aren't exactly the best at customer service, and you don't get that exact same service that you used to get when the dealership was locally owned. And one of the biggest examples is that Harley-Davidson dealers, they don't work on anything over 10 years old. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, with many Harley-Davidson dealerships going from being family-owned and operated, as I mentioned, we're seeing corporations start to snap these up. These corporations have very deep pockets. They can afford to buy the dealers. They can afford to do the remodels and the grand entryways and all the spectacular things that you see in a Harley-Davidson dealer. Don't get me wrong, Harley-Davidson dealers are some of the nicest motorcycle dealers out there that you will find. Now, many of these corporations, they will own multiple Harley-Davidson dealerships. The same is true along with car dealerships. A lot of time with car dealerships, you may see John Smith, Ford, Chevy, Dodge out there. Well, anymore these days, Mr. Smith retired, sold the dealership, sold the right to use his name. So while his name's on the building, you may not be getting the same service that you became accustomed to when Mr. Smith owned the dealership. This very same thing is happening with a lot of Harley-Davidson dealerships. Now, this isn't a knock at the folks working at the dealership. The folks working at the dealership, they basically have to do what corporate orders them to do, the owners of the dealership, so you may not experience the same quality of service that you once had at a Harley-Davidson dealership that was locally owned. Now, as we all know, as with any corporation, kind of like big box stores, they don't really care. They just want to make as much money as possible. That's not the worker's fault. That's coming down from the top. Now, this is where you find yourself with a twin cam 96, 88, or even a 103, and you go into one of these dealerships, and they won't even do an oil change for you on these bikes. Now, this creates a big problem because a huge perk of owning a Harley-Davidson was the dealer support out there and just the sheer number of dealers. Now, if you're on a multi-state trip, you get out there and you have an issue, you get on your phone, I'm pretty sure you can find a Harley dealer to get towed to and get your bike going and back in order. But if you have an older bike, they may not even touch it. Now, I can't speak for all dealers. I'm not saying a dealer wouldn't make an exception for somebody that's 2 states away from home and help get them back on the road, but it is very possible. Now, I can't speak for every Harley-Davidson dealership out there that doesn't want to work on a motorcycle that's over 10 years old, but a lot of times dealer service departments, they just don't want to work on basket cases. They just don't want to get into a situation where they fix something and something else breaks. And as I mentioned, with the dealers being corporate owned, they want quick in and outs, quick turnarounds, and high profit, high serviceability. They want to make as much money as they can and push as many motorcycles through that service department as humanly possible. And that creates a problem if you bring in an older motorcycle. They don't really want to take the time to actually sit down, diagnose an issue with an older bike, and try and actually track down and fix the problem. A lot of big dealerships, they want warranty work. They want Screaming Eagle parts out of the catalog that you can follow a flowchart from Harley-Davidson on how to install them. They want things that are theoretically going to be really quick, really easy, really simple, low time into them, high profit margin on the parts, high profit margin on the labor. They really don't want any unexpected surprises. And honestly, the other side of that coin, and this is in the dealer's defense, is that if you bring in an older motorcycle with their labor rate, their price on parts, all that could honestly end up being extremely expensive and very cost prohibitive to you as the customer for that older motorcycle, when they know they could recommend a good shop to you that'll actually work on it and do it a lot cheaper. The other side of that is that Harley-Davidson dealers are supporting the latest, greatest Harleys, well, up to about 10 years old, and every year that passes, those older bikes drop off of what they're going to work on. Harley-Davidson has been fighting a big battle against their own used motorcycles, and honestly, a dealership probably doesn't really want to keep your old bike on the road. They would rather you trade that in and put you on a brand new Milwaukee 8. Which is kind of crappy for the next guy that comes in the dealer and buys the bike that you just traded in, which say, let's 12 years old. He buys it and then finds out the dealer that he just bought it from won't even service it or repair it. Now, it's not all bad, though, if you have an older motorcycle and you could do your own work. Even if you don't want to do your own work, or maybe you're just not physically capable of doing your own work anymore. There are plenty of great options out there with independent repair shops. There's all kinds of independent mom and pop motorcycle repair shops out there that, for the most part, they pretty much specialize in Harley-Davidson, so you're already in business. A good local Indy shop is going to be able to do absolutely anything that a Harley-Davidson dealer would do, and arguably they're going to do it better because that person working in there, their name is on that business. Their heart and soul is going to go into the work that they're doing for your bike because your happiness with their work is their livelihood. Now, I'm not making a knock at technicians here, but everybody has a bad day. He may be mad at the boss, he may be mad at somebody else, and the guy working in the dealership may not give it 110% one day because, honestly, he may not have anything to lose other than that job, and big deal, go get a job at another shop. This isn't his whole livelihood that he's invested in right here. There's a lot of great independent shops out there, and I'm not saying all of them are great. There are some bad ones out there, just like with anything else. But one thing I do love about going to an independent shop is not only are they a lot cheaper than going to the dealership, but you're not playing telephone with a service writer like a lot of these other big dealerships have. You're talking directly to somebody that's going to work on your bike. Maybe not always, but he's hey Rick, through the window back in the back, and he can come up there and speak with you, and you can sit down and form a game plan together. I absolutely love that, and you're not playing telephone. The other benefit of an independent shop is the fact that they work on older bikes all the time. This is their bread and butter. Where in a dealership, a lot of the older guys have retired, moved on to bigger and better things, and you may have younger guys in there. I've heard stories about dealerships where they didn't even know what a twin cam was in there. I mean, that might be a stretch, but you got a lot of younger guys in there now. They may not have a lot of experience with your twin cam or your Evo. So that right there is just something to think about too. And guys, as we talked about in the previous videos, these new bikes that are mostly computerized, these are going to get older, they're going to filter into the used market, and I have no doubt that independent shops are going to be ready to help us out when it comes to that. Sometimes with some of these bikes, Specialy Tools like tools to access the ECM, software programming, things like that, they are very expensive. They may be pretty cost prohibitive for you to buy for a one, maybe two-time use at home. But for a small fee, you could take it to an independent dealer, and they'll be more than happy to help you out with that. That right there is an excellent cost savings, because buying all that just to use it one or two times, that's pretty expensive when you can just go down there and they're not going to charge you an arm and a leg for it compared to what the dealer would. But the dealer won't touch it, so you don't have to worry about that. The other thing with a used Harley, sometimes they're going to have a lot of aftermarket parts. They may have an aftermarket tune. They may have a Thundermax tuner in it. This is what Indy dealers specialize in. They eat, sleep, live, and breathe aftermarket installation. Can they get OEM parts? Surely. But most of their parts that they're going to be putting on your bike that they're dealing with, they're all aftermarket parts. Harley-Davidson is pretty much all Screaming Eagle stuff, especially the way the dealers are going these days. So guys, it's not that Harley-Davidson doesn't want your business. They absolutely want your money, but they want you buying new motorcycles, and they're not really interested in working on your older bike and trying to keep it on the road. If anything, they want that bike for a trade-in, and then you leave on a new Milwaukee 8 with a big computer screen. But guys, I want you all's opinions down in the comments. What are your experiences with dealerships and some independent shops. Let me know the good and the bad. I want to know what you guys have experienced out there. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. If you guys enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But till next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.